2018 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon Alaska Cannonball, 14,000 miles to Deadhorse and back. I've never delayed big adventure long enough to fill a bucket. But I do have a bucket item that dates to 1992, drive from Deadhorse, Alaska, to Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. 26 years later, it's time. But first, I needed a vehicle. And the Jeep Wrangler was not my first choice. Growing up as a kid in the Midwest, I loved Jeeps. But around 10 years ago I went on a camping trip to Death Valley with a colleague, testing the early JK Wrangler against the competition. By the end of it, I couldn't justify the ergonomic and physical punishment for the admittedly massive capability. So 2 years ago, I bought a 1994 Toyota Land Cruiser project truck to make the journey. I paid too much, and the Cruiser revealed itself to be not a garage project, but the Manhattan Project. I took this as a good omen. Adventure begins in the deep end, so why wait to get there? During a break from discovering enough gremlins to reboot the movie franchise, I had dinner with Jeep's West Coast Pierre. I mentioned my plans for a 6-month overlanding trek to Alaska. He said, "You know, we've got a new Wrangler coming out, that might be a good test of the chassis." My outside voice said, "That would be interesting." My inside voice said, anything's possible after 10 years, right? I might like it. Might. Many plans have gone awry on the way to this moment. It's taken more than a year to lock in a start date, because Jeep couldn't spare a Wrangler Rubicon. Everyone else in America keeps buying them. A suitable Wrangler was found eventually, but now the deed had to be done in 3 months, not 6. What was going to be a comfortably paced, backwoods roll up to Alaska and back has turned into the Rubicon Overland Cannonball. I know 14 weeks is plenty of time to drive to the Arctic and back. Tierra del Fuego is officially off the itinerary, however, the point of this trip is to fit in as much dirt, as many bucket list trails, and all the wild America possible. That means my route's about 14,000 convoluted miles of crisscrossing the country in all the cardinal directions. And that's assuming everything goes to plan. Until last week, I was doing this trip with a friend from college who lives in Marietta, Georgia. He was the video guy. Then he had a medical emergency, so the only trip he's taking is to the omen rehab. Now I'm going by myself, and I think it's important to point out that I have no idea what I'm doing. That isn't modesty, that's truth, zero clue. I've done plenty of off-roading and camping. I've only been overlanding once, 4 years ago, and I've never been in charge of an overlanding expedition. So I hopped into Challenger Hellcat and zipped from Los Angeles to Flagstaff, Arizona. There, the fabulous Nana Barlow, who runs off-road tours with her company Barlow Adventures, took me into the high mountains in her JL Wrangler, Juliet, for a full day's instruction. She taught me how to use a high-lift jack and a winch without killing myself, how to splice winch cable, how to tie knots and make a dog bone, how to keep my Jeep from sliding sideways downhill during a recovery, and how to avoid the kill zone. When we weren't on the mountain, she showed me what to buy and how to pack. Then she sent me goods and made introductions. Assuming I come back alive, Nana Barlow will be 85% responsible. She is the patron saint of this trip. Another 10% will be luck, the last 5% will be bear spray. The first leg is a holy highway run from Los Angeles to Georgia, for 2 reasons. 1, since the trip's cut in half, I couldn't lollygag in California fettling details. Almost all of the equipment I ordered I sent to my pal in Marietta, figuring we could throw everything in the back and sort out the particulars on the trail. That makes my first order of business getting my stuff. 2, I want to visit the vintage Jeep museum that Rugged Ridge maintains in Suwanee, Georgia. An afternoon of perusing how the Jeep legend began will mark the official kickoff for this boondoggle. My next stop will be Cape Hatteras, North Carolina to join the head of the Trans-America Trail, the first bucket list route on the list. Once I land in the Outer Banks, that will mark 1 week and 2,800 miles done and dusted. I'll follow all 5,184 miles of the Trans-America Trail from Cape Hatteras to Port Orford, Oregon, then turn right and head up the coast to Seattle. After a brief recoup and regroup on the shores of the Sound, I'm looking at 2,639 highway miles to Deadhorse, Alaska, the last 500 of which constitute the Dalton Highway, another bucket list stretch of travel. I'll spend a couple of days on a gander around the Arctic Oil Exploration Outpost, with the obligatory toe dip in Prudhoe Bay.